Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to Adult Academy. I want to talk today about Stoicism. Stoicism is the school of ancient Greek philosophy that deals with how to live a balanced life in light of the troubles that we face as human beings. It's really at the core of a lot of what we talk about in the Adult Academy Ethos. So much of what we talk about in the Adult Academy methods, whether it be our approach to parenting, to mentoring, to leadership, our approach to fitness, the work that I've done in the fire service warrior space, so much of that is rooted in Stoicism. And yet, Stoicism is something that I think is often misunderstood in the modern era. And it's important, I think, to define what we mean when we talk about a Stoic philosophy, a Stoic way of thinking. Broadly speaking, the Stoic philosophy is an actionable philosophy. It's a philosophy rooted in the idea of how one lives a good life. For the Stoics, living a good life meant living in accord with your nature, with the reality of who you were as a person. But one of the things that many of the Stoic thinkers thought about, reflected on, discussed, was humans as rational actors. And viewing humans as rational actors was at the core of what they thought human nature was. This tendency to view ourselves as rational actors first and foremost, I think is both at the heart of the value in the Stoic school of thinking and in its biggest failing point for real human beings. One of the ways that the modern world views Stoicism is in its emphasis on ignoring the passions of life, of ignoring the emotional attachment that comes with being human. There is no doubt that a detachment, a reflectiveness, is at the core of the Stoic project. But I think something that is important is recognizing that the Stoic school of philosophy was born in a time period before we understood our evolutionary heritage, before we understood that we are simply apes in pants. I think trying to capture the rationality of the human mind is incredibly useful. And yet, where Stoicism can be unhelpful is in the idea that we are first and foremost rational actors. We are first and foremost animals. We are a survival system that reacts out of fear, out of stress, out of anxiety, brought about by a lack of certainty. Our rationality is a higher order of thinking, and yet that rationality is not what saves us from the slithering snake down the path or the charging bear. Our brains, our bodies will always come back to keeping us alive, first and foremost. And that means that when we are in non-survival situations, we will do things that are, at times, irrational. That irrationality is an implicit part of who we are as humans. And that's okay. The core idea in Stoicism of not being affected by our passions can be very helpful. But at the same time, I don't believe that we are best served by taking Epictetus at his word when he says that we should not be affected by the death of a spouse or a child because death is inevitable. That's true, death is inevitable, and perhaps we should not be paralyzed when we are confronted with the realities of life, when we are confronted with the uncontrollable. We should be affected. One of the things that makes us human is our affective response, our emotional response to things. And that is valuable, and it is useful, and it can be a guide. I choose not to see the Stoic school as one that denies human nature. Rather, I choose to learn from the Stoics that there is value in choosing when we will be governed by our passions, and recognizing that there are times that being governed by our passions will hinder our progress. I see Stoicism as the earliest version of stress inoculation training. This isn't to say that that's how the Stoics viewed themselves. This is my interpretation. It is a modern interpretation of what Stoicism can teach us in light of what else we know about human nature, human psychology, human biology. Read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Read the Enchiridion, attributed to Epictetus. Read Seneca's letters. These are all valuable tools that we have in our repertoire for learning about how to handle the vagaries of life. Ultimately, what I will come back to is this. Being an adult human being means learning how to endure both difficult times and happy times without being swayed too far to despair or excitement. Enjoy the life that you have. Appreciate the privileges, the opportunities that are presented to you. But don't be overwhelmed by your emotional response. Don't be too quick to react out of excitement or despair. You are a product of evolution, and our fight or flight system is just as important to our success as a species as our rational thinking. Don't overcompensate and go too far in one direction or the other. Learn from both systems and learn to balance them. That, to me, is what we can take away from a modern interpretation of Stoic thinking. As always, thanks for taking time out of your day to visit with me. I appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe if you appreciate what we're doing here at Adult Academy. Share this message. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
Shut up and sit down.